Okay, we are live. I hope it works, the connection and everything, and not to mention YouTube. I hope we're not kicked out. So, we're going to talk about a very interesting phenomenon, which is the flat earth movement, which apparently has supporters all around the globe. I find it fascinating. Um, I have I've tried to look into where it comes from, and what it baffles me. Why do people think that the Earth is flat? Um, and I will start out here by saying that I think and I hope that some of the people who claim that the Earth is flat, some of them, maybe a smaller percentage, but some of them they're just trying to get the attention or be interesting or something like that. They don't really believe it. Um, I hope, but the majority of the people who are saying that the Earth is flat, I think that they actually believe that the Earth is flat. Um, and I was a bit shocked actually, because on my main channel, which is predominantly about the Viking Age, there's a link to my main channel in the video description. Um, I made a video about the myth that the Norse, or the Vikings, as we like to call them, that they thought the Earth is flat, and most likely they did not think that the Earth is flat because they navigated the seas, and during the medieval age, the common perception, at least among traveling and seafaring people and educated people, was that the Earth is a sphere. It's such a difficult word to say for Norwegian. Sphere, like round as a ball. Um, so, and when I was doing the research for that video, and I knew this from before, that the flat Earth thing is actually quite a modern perception. Well, I guess if you go back to the times before, I don't know, a long time ago, at some point, I guess people thought the Earth was flat because it looked flat or something like that. But once people started traveling across the seas, they obviously had to do their navigation based on the curvature of the Earth, or else they would not. Well, it wouldn't end well. Let's put it that way. We do. I expect that we get some flat earthers in the chat. That's okay. I'm not really going to discuss and argue with those people, because I noticed something. Yeah. So the comment section to that video about the Vikings actually knowing the Earth is a sphere, it was attacked by flat earthers, which I found shocking, because I wasn't discussing the shape of the Earth, just the myth that people today might think that the Vikings, they thought the Earth was flat because they were such primitive people, and that seems to be a common perception. And I've talked about that before, that the Norse or Viking culture, if you will, that they were very advanced, they were very cultural, they were a very advanced. It was an advanced culture in its time. So it, no wonder that they knew about the curvature of the Earth. But yeah, the flat Earth people attacked everyone in the comment section there. And what I noticed, and this is the reason why I don't think we should debate with flat earthers, is that they are mean. Generally, they are mean people. I'm sorry to say this, but they, I think it goes with their lack of academic understanding. Someone who has a background in academics, they will never be mean to you. They will debate in a respectful manner. But these people are just behaving like little brats. Um, and they just throw statements out there without any substance behind those statements. Now, um, and there was one comment I saw that this flat earther he wrote that this and that and the earth is flat and all of that, and you disappoint me, Bjorn. And I was like, what the fuck? Do I look like a guy who thinks that the earth is flat? Like, come on. So I looked into the statistics, and I'm sorry to say this, I love America, but a lot of stupid things comes from America. This seems to have started in America, and a poll done by YouGov. These polls, I don't know. You need to know how many people were asked and so on. And if, but so let's take it with a grain of salt. But it says that a recent YouGov poll found that only about 2/3 of Americans aged between 18 and 24 believe that the Earth is round. Now, it doesn't say how many of those remaining 1/3 believe that the Earth is flat, but those people in the remaining 1/3, 33.33%, they believe that the Earth is flat, or they're not sure about it. So that tells me two things. Okay, people should travel more. And the school system has failed, at least in the USA. And it's shocking. It's shocking because this movement apparently is growing. And you have people without shame claiming that the Earth is flat now in the public sphere. I'm looking at an article here from the University of Melbourne, but let's move on here to, let's see, no, same article. So why do people think that the Earth is flat? Here's what I think, and the University of Melbourne also think that, or rather, why has this movement gained traction? Abdul Aziz says hi, hello there. Valhall Heathen Epinoia says Bjorn is the smartest man in the world. I don't know that, but thank you. So here's what I think. During COVID, the authorities said, trust the science. Trust the science, which is a stupid thing to say. You shouldn't trust the science. You should trust the credentials of applying a scientific methodology. That's different from saying trust the science. You shouldn't trust the science. You should question science. That's how science works. And and I think that, and here's what I will say. Okay, I was banned from YouTube. I wasn't banned. I was almost very very close to being banned from YouTube for saying that. Listen, please check the facts behind those vaccines. And I think actually I can say this now on YouTube, but because they were sued and all of that. But I said, we have some research here saying already that it's going to be very damaging to your heart health. And now I don't think anyone out there, well, maybe someone, but I was correct, and not because I was correct, but because the real science said that these vaccines, they're going to wreak havoc to people's health, and they did. I didn't get the vaccine because I looked into the facts. I looked into the science behind it. But I think that those who believe in all sorts of crazy conspiracy theories, they also believed that those vaccines were not going to be a good thing to our health, right? So they were right. And it's like if you find a pearl or a diamond in a pile of pebbles, you will probably be more tempted to think that, that pile of pebbles might be full of diamonds, if you get what I'm saying. So it's about distrusting the experts. And yes, there are actual experts out there. Actual experts. Now, I've said this before, my daughter is in university studying biology, and she might not be an expert on biology yet, but she wants to do the masters and so on. And that would make her an expert in a field of biology. I'm not. I might be an expert in, I don't like to say that I'm an expert in anything, but I've been a novelist for all my adult life, so I might know a thing or two about writing novels. But that's my area. So it's because the government, the people that the government said was the experts, who really was criminals. I view them as criminals during COVID. Bill Gates and people like that. They said, trust those people, though they are the experts. Well, and people trusted them, and look what happened. And because of all of that, I think that these conspiracy theories, they gained traction during COVID and after COVID. It's about distrusting the system, which we should. We shouldn't trust the system. Distrusting the government, which we should. We shouldn't trust the government. So it's like, I think it was the COVID crisis that, or rather the handling of COVID, you could say, that made this flat Earth movement gained traction, I believe. Reno says, if you are no expert in astronomy, politics, history, or geography, you should perhaps avoid talking about flat Earth altogether, just saying. No, because I have traveled. I've seen the stars from Australia, right? It looks different from here in Norway. I've been out on the ocean. I've seen ships appear, then mast first. I looked at those with a very advanced binoculars. You can observe the curvature of the Earth. So this has to do with not only knowing science and the scientific methodology. It also has to do with observation. Now, here's something that I have done that I don't think any of you guys have done. I'm not sure, but that's my guess. A couple of weeks ago, no, is it a month now? 3 or 4 weeks maybe. I had a very nice conversation, one to one, with an actual astronaut. An actual astronaut, right? Because I was at this author's tour presenting my books, or my new book, and other authors were also there, touring Norway. And one of the authors is actually the first Norwegian who's been in space. Yeah. And she is a 3D technical photographer. So I think it has to do with mapping the Earth. And they did this. They what do you call it? They went around the Earth from North Pole to South Pole, so that way, right? And she told me about what it was like being up there, observing the Earth. And she said it was very emotional. She said, and this, I'm not trying to be political here, but we need to take care of this planet, because you don't see any borders. You don't see you. She was very emotional, and but my point here is that, listen, I'm pretty good at telling if people are lying. She was not lying. The Earth is a sphere. Now, you might want to trust someone who's never been in space, who's just sitting there spewing nonsense out on the internet instead, telling you that the Earth is flat. But I would rather trust someone who's actually been in space. So I had the luxury of having that conversation with this astronaut, and that for that I'm very grateful. There's something about these good conversations you can have with people who have experienced something that most people never experience, and so if you're not going to trust anyone, you're going to remain very ignorant. You have to apply some trust. If you don't, then you're never going to learn anything. Okay? So, according to this article, let's see here. They are kind of summarizing why people think that the Earth is flat, or at least why they say it. Now, it has to do with, obviously, social media. It becomes a bubble. It becomes an echo chamber. And what might have started as a curiosity for a very strange theory is then becomes a belief. It becomes feelings, and those are strengthened by the other people in that bubble. Also, social media, especially if you're using Google when you do searches, it will strengthen your already established beliefs and feelings. It will feed you more of the same. It will confirm your feelings and your beliefs. So another thing that seems to happen is that if you believe in or claim to believe in something that is a little bit far-fetched, it's very easy to get a feeling of being the actual expert, the one who's actually seen the truth. When you, let's say if let's just off the top of my head something crazy. Uh, let's say, oh yeah, the ants are the rulers of the world, and they have a. I'm making this up, okay? I'm making this up. So let's say if I said ants, they have this ability um, to come together in their hives and as one mind, and they control people's minds. Yeah, just made that up. And I know this, and I will. That's why people get sick, because the ants don't like them, and so on and so on. It's ridiculous, right? Obviously, I just made it up. Okay. um, and nobody else would say that because I just made it up. Well, maybe someone else made it up somewhere, but I just made it up. And if I kept saying that, I could actually adopt a feeling of superiority. I know more than you guys. Yep, I know more than you guys. I'm the expert. I know this. I've seen the truth. And actually, the elites in the world are controlled by ants. Yeah. So, you know, um, if it's something that's so crazy that only a few people will believe in it, um, then it gives you a feeling of being better than other people. And I think that if you have been, now I'm not saying what I'm going to say now, it might sound a little bit elitist. That's not my intention. I come from sorry, I come from Norway, where you can go to university for, it's almost for free, which is a good thing in my opinion. And if you choose to go to university and get a higher education, you will not believe that the earth is flat, because you learn about scientific mythology. No matter what you study, you learn about scientific mythology. Um, but it's like not everyone can go to university. It's not for everyone. And the main reason in most countries, I believe, is that it's very expensive. And the other reason is that not everyone is smart enough. I'm sorry to say this, but not everyone is smart enough. It's not for everyone. We have different talents. And so if you don't go to university, you might feel like, okay, this flat earth thing, yeah, well, let's see if there is some logic to it. Let's see if I can do some mental gymnastics and make these kind of models fit together. Then I can go on the internet and claim that the earth is flat, and I can be mean to everyone who says that it's not flat, because they are mean, honestly. Now, we're going to see if we can find some mean comments here in the chat in a few minutes. And we're going to stick to the topic. So, now, critical thinking is an interesting thing, because it requires you to put your emotions somewhere else. Your beliefs, your already established beliefs, you need to put them aside. There's a term here, Cartesian doubt. I'm just reading from the article here from this university. It's a philosophical idea that the world outside the self is subject to uncertainty. And that was a method of skeptical thinking popularized by Descartes, the French philosopher, mathematician, and scientist. So flat earthers are actually applying that principle. But the fact here is that when it comes to critical thinking, you need to have a basis. You need to have some level, a minimum level of understanding of how the world, how things works, how physics works, and so on. And it's like someone said earlier, I shouldn't talk about it because I'm not an expert on that. Well, at least I've been to school and I did listen. And I actually enjoyed being in school. And from the basic principles of physics that we did learn about, I can I can add that to my observations in life, and tell you that yes, the Earth is round. Yeah, I've seen actually that's the lunar eclipse, right? When the Earth is between the sun and the moon, and it casts a shadow on the moon, and that shadow is round. You can apply mental gymnastics to anything, and I'm sure they have an explanation for that, but it wouldn't. There are holes in that explanation. It obviously. So again, we're going to look at the chat now, and I'm not going to be arguing with flat earthers because I think that that's a waste of time. It's like arguing with very dogmatic religious people. It's just a waste of time. Now, I just want to say, before we do that, I want to say it's two things I want to say. It's ironic that flat earthers are using the internet. They're using smartphones all around the globe. Those satellites, it wouldn't work if the Earth was flat, right? So, and also, as I mentioned, and Jeff mentions this here, when I was in Australia, the celestial body, no, that's celestial body, the heaven with all its celestial bodies, the stars, it was different looking than from Norway. Yeah, an organic machine, Dean 333, says the Earth is actually more like I thought you were going to say that it's not, the Earth is not completely round. It's a little bit wider around the middle, like equator. But that's very, it's from a distance, it looks completely round. So, and was it? I saw a commenter. Who was it? Who's been flying around the Earth several times, and yeah, it is round. Yeah, that's Sentry. Yeah, space mark. It kind of widens because it goes round, right? Yeah. So Yeah, a space monkey says squashed orange a little bit. If you if you put one giant hand on the North Pole and one on the South Pole and you squish it a little bit, then you get the shape of the Earth. So yes. Yes. Well, concerning, just want to say something concerning people in the past, like the Viking Age and before that. Um, First of all, there is nothing to suggest that they were dumber than us. I would actually say that, if anything, they might have been smarter, like higher IQ, maybe, because when it comes to evolution, it in a society not completely based on war, you would probably maybe also a society based on war. It's difficult to know, but anyway, smart people seems to have a better chance of making their offspring become adults so that they can have offspring, which means that um, evolution would make it so that people get smarter, right? And today, society takes care of, or should take, in most civilized countries, society to some extent takes care of people, even if you have a very low IQ, right? And your children won't die because you have a low IQ, and we should be very thankful for that. But because of that, you might actually say that people in the past were smarter than us. That's obviously we can't prove that, but it's just an idea. Um, and also, we now have what is called linear thinking. And that was, I believe, introduced with Christianity. It seems to have a more linear thinking when it comes to life and death and everything. In the Bible, now I will use the term Christian mythology because, and this is not disrespectful, because I think we can all agree that some of the things that you can read in the Bible, it's clearly mythology. Okay. Um, unless you are a literal, you believe in everything there in a literal sense, and you know Moses parting the sea and so on. That's mythology. That never happened. That's impossible. So um, in that mythology, there's a description, right, with the earth and the firmament above. So Christianity probably did have something to do with this way of thinking, that we're kind of, yeah, like uh, ants in a terrarium or something like that, being observed by the Almighty God above, right? Um, so but anyway, we know that in cultures before Christianity, before Islam, before Judaism, um, or outside of those cultures, you could say, people seem to have a more circular understanding of life and death and time. And I don't know if you've seen these models or these drawings of Yggdrasil, the world tree, connecting the 9 worlds. I don't know if you've seen that, but if you've seen those, and sometimes they put these discs in the tree, because when back in the old days, they thought that the Vikings, they thought that the worlds were flat, but they didn't. Now it does say in it's in the Edda that the Earth is round. Is it Edda? Yes, yes, it's the Edda. And I I don't actually know Old Norse well enough to. I haven't read the Old Norse original there. Uh, does it mean round like a ball or round like a pizza? I don't know, but we know that they navigated the sea based on a round Earth understanding back then. Not only the Vikings, but most other, all other seafaring peoples. That's you can't navigate the sea if you assume that the Earth is flat. It just won't work. Your observations, your theories won't fit with what you observe out at sea. Okay, so yes. Now let's get to with a bit of fear and dread. I will now look at the chat. Red Wolf Moon says the sun and all the universe rotates around Earth. No. No. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to. Yeah, Jeff Willis says, breaking news, edge of flat Earth still missing. Please return if found. Yeah, here's a interesting thing. The idea that there's an ice wall surrounding. Angela says, "Don't read the comments." I promise to do that, so I will do that. But the idea is that it's at the edge of the world. There's this ice wall, and you can't go past the ice wall. Now, again, I've had as a novelist, in Norway, if you go to the South Pole or North Pole, and you travel to put the Norwegian flag there on the South Pole, and several people have done that now, and then you write a book. Then you write the book, because it's like this Norwegian thing. That's what we do. We are polar explorers and all of that. So I have talked to people who've been there actually many years ago now, but there is no ice wall. There is no ice wall. So yes. Let's see here. Yeah. And you do realize that when Columbus, he wanted to establish a faster and more, a cheaper and faster and cheaper and safer trade route to India, right? So he thought, let's just sail around the globe the other way, and reach India through the back door, so to speak. They knew he wouldn't have attempted that if he thought that the Earth was flat, and neither would the Queen have supported his journey with a lot of money if she thought that. Hold on, was it? So he was Portuguese, and he got funding from Spain, or was he Spanish and got funding from Portugal? I can't remember. Sometimes I forget these things, but that's not the point, Yeah. So Let's see. Canadian Spudman says humans have always told stories, part of our existence. I think comment here to another comment. Jeff also says use science, not ignorance. Yes, we should. Now, let's see here. I'm trying to find a comment that kind of illustrates the mentality of flat earthers. There aren't that many, actually, flat earth comments here. Let's see. Okay. Oh, yeah. Organic Machine Dean333 says, I disagree with flat earth people and globe people. I'm bringing a new concept to the plate. Donut-shaped earth. Yeah. And the trick is not to fall into the hole in the middle. Yeah, Environmal says, imagine flat earthers trying to understand geophysics. Yeah, that's interesting, because if you assume that the earth is flat, you have to change, well, you have to come up with a whole lot of other theories explaining lots of other things too. It kind of changes so many things. Yeah. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. No, I didn't really find any. I didn't really. Yeah, there wasn't that many flat Earth comments here. I'm sure there will be in the comments to this live stream. Yeah. So basically, I think that you could say that flat earthers are quite benign. They are nasty in the comment section. I've seen that many times. But it's like this, it doesn't hurt anyone that they think that the earth is flat. It might hurt them, but it's a bit sad, really. But there are other things that that are obviously much more damaging. If you believe that, let's see if I can come up with an example. Yeah, racism. Like if you believe that some ethnic group is evil, for instance, if you believe that Caucasians are evil, or that people in North Africa are evil, something like that, then that's obviously more damaging than believing that the earth is flat, because then you might want to harm those people. Yeah. So yeah, Jamie says, I think science is and can only catch up with the absolute minimum of an understanding of the natural world, meaning it's beyond our comprehension most things. Well, what we don't know about, we don't know about, right? Let's say, I'm getting a little bit philosophical here, but what if there are other dimensions than the ones that we can observe? But we can't observe them. We wouldn't know, right? Um, let's see here. Yeah, Ixoxy says it's proof that our senses are limited, looks flat, but you need a larger understanding of your surroundings to understand. Yeah, I think that if we, there are many examples of things we can't see, we can't observe them with our senses, but we use logic to understand what's going on, basically. Um, you know, Mike Rock, yeah, we will move a little bit on to the fake moon landing. The 1916, Mike says, what is your response to people who claim that the 1969 moon landing was an elaborate film production? That's interesting, right? Now, I think that people, I think it was not fake, but that's not a crazy theory. That would have been, would maybe possible, maybe possible. I think it would have been difficult. I think someone would have talked, but they would have said that, listen, I have this story here. It's fake. Pay me this and that much money, and you get exclusive rights to this thing in the news. Now, but you could kind of imagine that that's something that U.S. government would have tried to do. That's, now, I don't get me wrong. I don't think it's a fake. I don't think it's fake. But they could have done that to make the Soviets put more resources into going into space, so that they would have had to use less resources on military spending. Maybe. um, let's see here. Jeff says, we literally left retroreflectors on the moon. You can bounce a laser off them. Try it. I didn't know that. Now, as I said, I absolutely believe that they went to the moon. Mark says there is no space. Okay. Jeff says also the Apollo missions had real-time telemetry, radio data, seismic instruments, and were tracked independently by other countries, including enemies. Yeah. Now, I think I think that that's a different kind of conspiracy theory. It's more interesting. Flat Earth is kind of shocking, but fake moon landing is like, it wouldn't be impossible, right? So that's a different kind of conspiracy theory, I think. Yeah, conspiracy theories, they can be very entertaining. Oh yeah, Flat Hollow Moon. Yeah, I like that one. That's an alien base where all the souls go. I heard that um, the guy with the little ugly mustache, uh, he didn't die. Second World War. Um, he and I think I can say the word. The Nazis, they went to the moon, and the moon is hollowed out, and that's where they are hiding. Uh, um, Someone's asking, what does the Norse cosmology say? Now, Norse cosmology, they don't really have a cosmology per se, because they have a, you need to understand that was a different time. So they have, like how the sun and the moon, uh, sometimes I forget these names. uh, the wolves, well, basically they're moving around the earth, and they thought back then that the sun and the moon moved around the earth. Not that the earth moves around the sun. What is it? You know what? I have to look it up. Sometimes I forget. I'm pretty sure what their names are, but let's see here. I want to be sure, because there are so many names. Sometimes I forget. Yes. Um, um, yes. So Skull and Hati, wolves. So they chase the sun and the moon, right, across the sky. So you have the sun. So Sol, right? That's the sun being chased. Let's see here. If I can't remember every single detail. So Hate, that's hatred, cool name. Chases the moon, and Skull is chasing the sun across the sky. So yes. But in Norse cosmology, the nine worlds are connected, and they're connected through the world tree Yggdrasil. So let's see. Let's see here. Yeah, the flag on the moon waving. Yeah, I heard that. It's not waving. Yeah, I had a conversation with someone who I knew from before, and he suddenly said, we talked about this flat Earth movement and all of that, and he said, "Well, I don't know if the Earth is flat or round." That made me a little bit worried about him. After that, he got into some personal crisis. Yeah. You know what? The cosmology, we shouldn't use that term, but in Norse mythology is very esoteric in my mind, and I still find it difficult to understand. I tend to think that it's sort of misrepresented because it was written down by Christian monks and Christian people after having been told and retold through generations after people were converted to Christianity. But yeah. Okay. Well, there is gravity on the moon. It's just not very much of it. If there was no gravity, the astronauts there, they would just have bounced off into space, Yeah, so I just want to get back again to, the fact that I did speak to an astronaut. What do you say? Astronaut in Norwegian. And it was an emotional thing for her. And I can kind of understand it, but, I think if I went into space, I don't want to. I think that would be very scary. And this was one of the Elon Musk, the SpaceX thing. And the funny thing is that Elon Musk, he called them on FaceTime up there, and he was really that's his passion apparently, the space X, and exploring outer space. So we called them up there. Yeah. They were not up there for many days. Was it like a week or something like that? Yeah. And she had this, we were on stage, and she had these images that she had, she photographed with probably some very advanced camera up there, 3D. Svalbard. Svalbard is an island belonging to Norway, up north in the icy sea there, and also the south of Norway from a different angle, right? And you could see the curvature of the earth and the south of Norway with all the mountains and the fjords and all of that. Like, that was quite amazing to see, I must say. I've never seen photographs like that before. Yeah. So, first man to pee on the moon. Who was that? I asked her, so don't try that, because I asked her what would happen if the spacesuit rips. So like, if you're unprotected in outer space, what would happen? If I remember correctly, she said that eventually your blood starts to boil. That doesn't sound very, very nice at all. So it's has something to do with vacuum, I think. Yeah, if Polly says if the spaceman peed on the moon, it would have hit her helmet smack in their face. Well, I read about that. the spacesuits, they pee in their spacesuits because if they have to go, they can't open it, right? So they I don't know. There must be some. This is a bit disgusting. Must be some kind of diaper in there. Well, you can't just take it off and go for a pee, when you're out in space. Um, so I don't. Well, it must be some kind of diaper. Another thing that she said, which was interesting, because I saw on the TV that one danger, something that can happen, which is actually dangerous when you're in no gravity, right? You can, if you fall a little bit, or you end up in the middle of the spacecraft without anything to grab. You just stay there. So they were trained in taking off their jacket and throwing the jacket, because that would be just enough force going the other way to make you drift into the wall. So that was, you don't think about these things, but they were obviously, they went through months of training. So yeah. And apparently, when you go to the toilet, it's very public in the spacecraft. It's yeah. So let's see here. There are no satellites. Says Mark. You're using a satellite now to write that there are no satellites. Imagine how those people working with it's like imagine the people who sent up the satellites to enable people to be able to communicate using the satellites, and some of those people are using that to write comments like there are no satellites. It's here's what I think. Here's what I find disturbing. Okay, now the flat Earth people, they just throw statements out there, and I think they find some pleasure in doing that. You won't really see like scientists doing that. Now, I am, my experience with history and archaeology, because that's the kind of people I talk with as a historical novelist, and they will not be dogmatic and absolutist in their statements. Now you could say that that's because it's a different field. History is always, it's subjective. So that's. But anyway, I find that a trademark of not knowing what you're talking about. Excuse me, but if you're saying that the Earth is flat, you don't know what you're talking about, obviously. And a trademark of that is that you just throw statements out there because there are no, you can't really defend that statement. There's a reason why you don't see a PhD candidate defending his or her thesis on why the Earth is flat, because that individual wouldn't be able to defend that. It wouldn't pass the peer review. So, yeah. Yeah, you have the ham radio operators bounce the signals off of satellites every day. I want a ham radio. Yeah. Jeff, I'm very sorry to hear that. Very sorry to hear that. My condolences to her and to your wife. I'm very sorry to hear that. But you're also saying tonight is lifting my spirits, seeing so many idiots. Well, that's one way to look at it, I guess. Yeah. Ham radio, Ian, they bounce off the atmosphere. Is that how it works? I'm not sure. I don't know. Radio waves. Hold on. Radio waves. That's a very, I have to look into that because and Jeff says ham radios can bounce off the ionosphere, but only shortwave. Try that with a dish pointed at a geostationary orbit. I don't know, but obviously, that's something I have to look into. Do they use satellites now, or I don't know. Jeff says atmosphere, shortwave bounce, satellite, precise high orbit relay, two different leagues. Okay. Now, it's like we should never stop learning, and I think that any model or way of thinking that has an ending is false, and it's not true, and it's damaging to our intellect. And the flat earth model, models, I guess they have several models, but you don't get any further, right? Because it's very limited. They just made statements. This is how it is, and you're not supposed to think further. But yeah, we should remain students. I've said it so many times. Students in the sense that not like necessarily going to university, but students like being curious and learning and questioning things and so on. Yeah, FX Trader. Yes, the moon is hollow and inside is an alien base. Yes, that's my favorite favorite conspiracy theory, actually. Yes. Jamie is asking if it is flat or if it is round. What is the difference? Well, you could say if it's flat, would it make any difference? Well, then it would have been flat since forever. Then, okay, but yes, it does make a difference. If the Earth had been flat, you would have to change everything when it comes to physics, probably chemistry as well. uh, which again would, it would change everything. Everything, yeah. So, but it's not, obviously. It's not flat, it's round. What does it change to me personally? I don't. Well, then it would mean that I am completely insane because I have observed. Yeah, as I said, I've been to Australia. I've flown around the globe. No, did I fly around the globe? No, we went back the same way actually. And I've also been to the USA, different time zones, and so on. And I almost on a daily basis or several times a week, I have conversations with people in other parts of the world, and I have to I have to time the. You can't, like, I couldn't. Now it's 20 minutes past 6 in the morning here in Norway. I'm sure the flat earthers have a silly explanation for this as well. But I couldn't call someone in New York now, right? Because they would be sleeping. So Jeff says, if the Earth were flat, SpaceX wouldn't need rockets, just ladders. Wouldn't that be cheaper? Well, you could. What if they use a rocket that has a hook attached to it, some kind of attachment point, and from the rocket there's a cable, a very long cable, and they just fly it up into the firmament and it attaches there, and then you have a cable going from the earth to the firmament, the roof. What if you maybe what happens if you blast through it? Yeah. Another question: if the earth is flat, Robster, what is on the other side? Yeah, how thick is it? That crust, how thick is it? Can you just dig through? What if you make a hole? You know, can you make a hole? Wouldn't it leak? If you made a hole in an ocean, you drill down like we do here. We Norwegians, we drill in the ocean a lot, looking for oil and gas. What if they drill too far down? Then the ocean would just like like be emptied then. You know? uh, would there be dragons? Yeah. Jeff, yeah, would it matter if the Earth is flat? Yeah, Jeff, thank you. You're helping me out here because physics cares. And when you build stuff like satellites or space stations, you better care too. Yes, that's true. Um, let's just tether a satellite with 22,000 miles of extension cord. Yeah, Walmart sells that in bulk. Yeah, yeah, that's another way we could try that. Shiba says time zones don't prove much. Well, they really do, actually. They really do. You know, because I just suggest that you look into it a little bit more. You know, uh-huh. Why stop at the cable? Let's give the moon a leash too. Don't want it running off. Yes, we could just tie the moon to the earth. Wouldn't that be cool? Or was it Gru, that animation movie with the his little minions? Isn't it like he claims to have stolen the moon? Yeah. Um, yeah. No, I'm just kidding here, of course. Just kidding. Yeah. Now, in the article from was it the University of Melbourne? There's another thing here that points to modern people thinking that people in the past thought that the Earth was flat, and that's wrong. They didn't think that. In the Middle Ages and so on, they didn't. They knew the Earth was round. But as I said in my video on the main channel, did common people, the common peasant, know? Did they even think about it? Did they even care? We don't know. Probably they thought about they were more emotionally invested in other things. But it says here, and this is something that people don't think about so much. There is no way to project a three-dimensional sphere onto a two-dimensional sheet of paper, or like a goat skin or whatever. And because of that, you have to make the Earth look flat when you make a map. Now, there is something called Mercator's projection. That's the one we use today. And it is the reason why people think that Greenland is a massive, huge island. Oh, it's big, but it's not that big. And Africa is not that big. In reality, Africa is much bigger than it looks when you look at the map. And Greenland and even Norway, it's much, much smaller than what it looks like on the map. Because when you can do this yourself. It would be difficult, but if you have you seen these? You can blow up these little balls that children play with, right? And you can buy. At least I've seen some that it's a globe with the continents and so on it. And if you cut it up and try to make a two-dimensional square piece of paper map there, you would not be able to do that. You would kind of have to stretch out the north and the south and shrink the middle. That's why we don't really understand how big Africa is and anywhere else along the equator, while the northern regions are stretched out and look much bigger than they are in reality. Yes, the Mercator projection. And this is it's interesting because these things shape people's perception. It's like the atom. In school, we are taught how the atom looks. I remember that, and it's like this center, and you have what's spinning around? Is that the protons? I've forgotten these things, but someone here in the chat will know. But my point here is that it doesn't look like that at all. That's just what you call it, schematic. It's a way to draw it so that people understand how it works. It doesn't look like that. If you protons and neutrons, okay, thank you. It doesn't look like that. If you, they have these not telescopes, microscopes, where you can actually see an atom, right? And it doesn't look like that. But I spent most of my life thinking that, oh yeah, that's how it looks like, somewhat like that. And then I read an article, and there was an image there. Oh, this is how an atom looks. Oh, it doesn't look like that, you know. And I find that is very interesting. So we tend to forget that people had these problems back in the old days as well, you know. And these maps, they don't mean that they thought the Earth was flat. It just meant that they had the same technical problems drawing a map that is supposed to represent something that is a three-dimensional sphere. Yeah. Was it here? Let's see. Eratosthenes, our friend. So, as I said in that video on the main channel, linked to in the video description, our friend with the big head, a big bald head, Eratosthenes, in 240 BCE or BC, before Common Era or before Christ. So he noted that on the 21st of June that year, in a town called Siena, the reflection of the sun could be seen in a deep well, meaning that it was directly overhead. But in Alexandria, around 800 kilometers away, and almost directly north of Siena, at noon on the same day, the angle of the sun was about 7 degrees, or 1/50th of a circle. Now, if the Earth was flat, then that angle would be identical in both places. Let's see, and it says here, unless you imagine that the sun is very close to the Earth, you know, because if the sun is like 5 miles above us, then obviously and it's moving around there or something. I think flat earthers believe that the sun is very close and it moves around up there or something like that. But, you know, come on. From this, he concluded that the circumference of the Earth must be 50 times the distance between Siena and Alexandria. This gave him a figure that was very close to the actual circumference as we know it now. And in 150 AD, Ptolemy's treatise Geographia laid out a revolutionary system of assigning coordinates expressed in degrees of latitude and longitude to locations around the world. The mathematician and astronomer assigned these coordinates to more than 8,000 places across the known world. And this system is used actually today. It wasn't completely accurate, but we still use that system. And that is based on the theory that the Earth was and is indeed round. So, yeah. So other observations here. We see the top of a ship's mast coming into port, not the entire ship. And also when you're out sailing, now I have a little sailboat, and bigger sailboats are faster. It makes me very irritated, actually. And when they sail past me and they vanish, first the hull sinks and then the mast sinks in the under the horizon. All other planets, celestial objects, are spheres. And a lunar eclipse, as I mentioned, the Earth's shadow on the moon is curved. And this shift towards people believing that the Earth is flat, it has to do with distrust, as I mentioned. Yeah. Ixoxy says, would having 5 suns in your solar system change time and chemistry? It probably would. Time, not time, not time. Time is an interesting thing, isn't it? That's, I think, is a topic for another discussion. It would certainly change a lot of things. Yeah, Ian says time slows down the faster you go. Yeah, we're into things that I do find complicated. Another thing you can observe, now this one I haven't seen myself. I've seen a lunar eclipse. I've seen the ships vanishing behind the horizon out at sea, and I've looked at the moon. Obviously, it looks very round. But I was going to say, no, I forgot it. I'll probably, it will pop up again. Yeah, was it here? Yeah. You're welcome, Jeff. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. Do you have some people around you, someone you can talk to, maybe? Well, when it comes to the flat Earth thing, it has to do with creating a sense of elitism, where you obviously will have not so many people agreeing with you. So that means that you get attention, and you get to call other people idiots, which is, I thought when I was a boy, I thought that, and I the comic books, about the future, we would have flying cars, and we would have talk to people through, while seeing them on a screen while we talk to them, which we can do now. But the flying cars, yeah, I guess there are flying cars, but you can't really It wouldn't be safe if everyone had flying cars. But anyway, I thought that, that's the future. But instead, we kind of got people thinking that the Earth is flat. And yeah, so that was a disappointment. Yeah. Yeah. Also, I think that we shouldn't discuss the shape of the Earth. I really don't think that we should. It's like discussing if you get wet when you get into the bathtub. I do get wet when you get into the bathtub to take a bath. And if there are people saying that, no, I never get wet when I'm sitting in the bathtub and there is water in the bathtub, I don't get wet. So, yeah, that's my observation. We should discuss that. No, we really shouldn't discuss that. Jamie, you're quite certain? Am I certain that the Earth is not flat? Yes, I am. You should be too. I you know, yeah, and then there's this thing where people, flat earthers, they will say the following. The same people who say that the earth is round, they're also saying they can't they can't define what a woman is. If you ask them what is a woman, they can't answer. That's just a foolish thing to say. I despise Matt Walsh, and now I remember his name. He's been saying so many stupid things up through the years that it's quite incredible. Um, and come on, it's like that's just silly. That's just silly. There is no scientists claiming that a man who wants to live his life as a woman is a woman. There is no scientist. Well, gender studies and things like that, but you won't find any, should we call it, a proper scientist, proper academic saying that. It's a cultural thing. That's a cultural thing. It's not a biological thing, you know. So that's, again, it comes to this distrusting science. Well, it doesn't have to. Science doesn't care if you trust it or not. It's a method. It's just a method. And if you apply science to proving whether a man who wants to live his life as a woman is an actual woman, the science will tell you he's a man. He is not a woman. This is very simple. Science will never, ever tell you that a biological male is a woman. For obvious reasons, okay? And you won't find proper scientists, let's say a physicist, saying that scientifically speaking, this male here who now lives as a woman is a woman. He or she will never say that. Oh, you might have someone feeling the pressure of the culture that we live in now. And, oh, yeah, okay, let's say woman then. But you get my point here. Let's see. Yeah, sharp canines. No, I agree. We shouldn't talk about it. So we're done with that. Yeah. Okay. So basically, I find the flat Earth movement to be maybe not harmful. It might be harmful to the people who subscribe to that movement. Did I say flat Earth theory? It's not a theory. It doesn't qualify as a theory, by the way. But it's not harmful, I would say. But it is quite telling about the time that we live in now. People are ignorant. There is an anti-intellectual movement. There is a contempt for intellectualism. And I think it's a very foolish, and that I think is dangerous. A contempt for intellectualism will lead to things like just accepting what the authorities tell you. Yes. Now let's look into that a little bit more. So because these people, they say, oh, you trust the government, they made you think that the earth is round. No, the government didn't make me understand that the earth is round. Understanding physics and my own observations made me understand that the earth is a sphere, right? So the government doesn't, you need a healthy amount of intellectualism in order to be able to question authorities. There is a reason why authoritarian movements like Stalin's Soviet, Hitler's Nazi Germany, they first went after the intellectuals. They need to get rid of those. But you believe NASA? I don't know if you were here. I had an actual one-to-one conversation with an astronaut, Norwegian astronaut, actually, a few weeks ago. It was a very interesting conversation. And I can tell if people lie, So I also would rather trust NASA than some grifter on YouTube, or maybe not YouTube, but other social media sites, who want your money, either from the clicks and the ads, the attention, or just donations. So call me crazy if you will, but I would rather trust NASA's observations than some grifter on the internet. And Monkman says, all just your opinion? No, it's not my fucking opinion. It really isn't. It really isn't. Have you traveled much? Are you a well-read person? Have you talked to an astronaut? Have you seen the ship sinking below the horizon? I don't think you've done any of those things. But many people have. And when you make these observations, you understand that the flat Earth movement, I think, has to do with the need for attention. And I also think it has a lot to do with money, as many things. So, yeah. And as having been a YouTuber for some time, if you say crazy stuff, you will get money from YouTube or other social media platforms. Ian says, I think flat earthers are just trolls. A lot of them, I think, are just trolls. But it also has to do with money. And I just want to finish this live stream with this aspect of it. And as a YouTuber myself, I can tell you that it's so easy to get kind of I believe I've managed to avoid this, but these social media platforms, they want you to do the same. They want you to cater to the same audience, the same people, saying the same thing, doing the same thing, and helping the platform creating and strengthening that echo chamber. That's how you make money on social media. And let's not be naive here. Many of these people, they might really think that the earth is flat, but you know, a lot of them are in it for the money. And that's I guess that's one way to make money. But so yeah. Prove gravity, says Monkman. Well, if you get up on a ladder and you jump off the ladder, you will probably fall down. Yeah. And now you will say it's the law of attraction. Yeah. If you say that, you don't know what gravity is. But it really is a marker of not it's a marker of ignorance, what you're saying there. Prove gravity. It's what flat earthers will say. Gravity is actually a theory. It's a scientific theory, and also flat earthers will say it's just a theory. That tells me that you don't know what a theory is. You don't know what a scientific theory is, what it means. Flat Earth is not a theory. It's not a theory. Monkman says a theory is not a fact. Okay. I want you, Monkman, and other people here saying that. I want you to go and look up the definition, the scientific definition of a theory. Okay? Yeah, there is one here. I'll help you out. A theory is the current best explanation for a set of observed phenomena. If new evidence comes to light in the future, the theory will be tested against it. If it fails, then the theory is wrong. If it passes, then we gain more confidence in it, but it is never proven. Now, please try to understand what I just read there. So I promise not to argue with flat earthers here, because that's not why I'm doing this. But anyway. Now, I'm not a scientist, but prove time. Prove time. Yeah? Prove time. No, I'm not. I don't know if time is a theory. We're getting very esoterical here. But James says wrinkles. That was a good answer. Yeah, now we're getting into, what would have been interesting to have a proper physicist here. Jeff has been very helpful here. So gravity is still being studied, yes, but we already measure its effect with stunning accuracy. Apples still fall, GPS still works, planets still orbit. The theory may evolve, but the force is real. Yes, absolutely. And Jeff also says we're still working on a quantum gravity theory, but Newton's and Einstein's equations have predicted real-world outcomes for centuries. That's not a maybe, that's a win. Yes. Yeah, and also we don't need to fully understand gravity's source to see it working. You don't need to know how your phone CPU works to send a text either. Now, I have a scar here. I fell coming up from taking a bath in the sea, and I fell on the rocks, and I could kind of feel gravity there and then. Yeah, the effect of gravity. 100-kilo body falling creates quite a lot of force, you know. But you can call it other things. And that's what flat earthers do. They say, oh, it's not gravity, and they just throw other words out there without understanding what those words mean. Yeah, Jeff, exactly. Gravity isn't a belief system. It's a measured force. Flat Earth is a belief system. You can't observe the Earth being flat. That's impossible. Well, yeah, if you now there aren't any places here. This is an interesting thing, by the way. Where I live here in Norway, there aren't any flat areas outside in nature. You have hills and well, you have the sea, of course, but I've been there and I've observed the ships and all of that, as I've said many times now. But the land is not flat. It's always at an angle. So I don't know. My guess is that this flat Earth thing must have started somewhere in the middle of the USA, where it's like totally, completely flat, far from the ocean, because that looks flat, you know. Hi there, Corolla. Yes, I did see you there. Yeah. Water always finds its level. Ah, I see, Monkman. Are you like the flat earther here? Yes. In order to defend your flat earth model, you need to say that there is no gravity, because gravity is obviously what keeps the water attached to the globe. The hard surface of the globe, like the what is not water, right? Because if there was no gravity, then water and, well, everything would just float off, right? So in order to defend a flat Earth model, you need to say that if the Earth is round, now you need to say that the water needs to stay, and the water can only stay on a level. And then there can't be gravity, because if there is gravity, which we do have gravity, then the gravity will keep the water attached to the globe, right? Yeah, I see your mental gymnastics there. It would spin off. Yeah, without gravity, the water would spin off, I guess. But there, like, that's the gravity thing. But isn't it like, just asking here, like Mars is has no water as far as I know, as far as we know, and that I think is like because it lost its what you call the layer with we can breathe here, right? There's a thin layer of air. Sorry, a thin layer of air. You call that. You have different layers. You have different layers. Can't remember what they're called now. You have the atmosphere, and then you have the, well, basically, as far as I know, I think Mars lost those layers, which also contributed, I believe, to Mars losing its water. Right? I think. Now, I'm not a physicist, but I think we can conclude that gravity is a main reason why water sticks to the earth. Because if I don't have any water here, if we take a glass of water and you pour it out above your feet will be wet because the water will then land on your feet. That's a demonstration of gravity. So, yeah. Not one says believe nothing, do your own research. Yeah, a good principle, but we can't always do our own research. Some things we actually have to trust other people. Imagine if you believed nothing from you were a little child. You would be completely ignorant. You wouldn't know almost anything about the world. So we do need to put some trust in other people, and there are those who say that believe nothing. And I get what you're trying to say there, but in reality, we do trust other people all of the time. We do take other people's observations and what they're telling us as fact all of the time. Just think about it. You don't nobody actually questions everything. Nobody is questioning everything. It's just that you choose to question some people. And a good example, I think, is very religious people. They seem to trust the pastor a lot. And the pastor has a book, and it's called the Bible. It's a collection of stories. And he says, this is the word of God. It really isn't, if you look into the history of that. It really isn't. It's a collection of texts. But a lot of people, they will say that trust nothing, but they will trust what the pastor says. So we all trust some people. No, Monkman says globe theory. No, that's not a theory. I'm pretty sure that does not define as a theory, because we can observe that the earth is round, that it's a sphere. We have photos. You're going to say that those are fake, but listen, that's on you if that's how you want to live your life. So the earth being round is like a sphere, is not a theory. I'm pretty sure that does not qualify as a well. That's not a theory because it's like saying that this microphone is a theory. I can touch it, I can see it. So it's not a theory, it's an object. The earth is an object. We can observe it, we can see it. You know? So, but yeah, you know, you're not going to trust NASA, you're not going to trust the astronauts, you're not going to trust any photo taken from outer space. You're not going to trust any of that. Then you can go around saying that it's a theory, that the earth is a sphere. That's on you. That nobody's getting hurt from you saying that, I think, but you probably will. So yeah. Yeah, Kant says there's a difference from what a religious figure and a scientist claim, because a scientist is supposed to provide evidence. The theory of gravity is still a okay. It's still a faith-based system. No, it's not. It really isn't. Eh, okay. Did Bjorn get the jab? I used to say, I'll let you figure that out for yourself. No, I didn't. Because I trust the scientific process. And if the scientific process and methodology is not being utilized, I do not trust the result of that. That was the case with the COVID vaccines. And I can say that now, I believe, here on YouTube again. Yeah. Not one says science is a religion too. No, it's not. No. So imagine if you're in church and the pastor or the priest he stands there, or she, and says this and that about God and Jesus and all of that. And then all the people on the first row in the church, they stand up and they go up to the priest or the pastor and they sit down on some chairs. And then the priest or the pastor have to defend his stance on what he just said, every detail of it. And if you can't do that, and if you can't point to facts proving what he said, it's just rubbish. So that's all the scientist, a PhD student, someone who wants the PhD degree, he or she needs to do that to defend his thesis, right? So science is not a religion. It's not based on faith. It's the opposite of that. Science is based on the lack of faith. It's based on, we do not trust anything that we cannot observe. You need the hard facts. The science behind the Big Mac, Laura, that wasn't science. Big pharma trying to make $1, and they made billions. So okay, I'm yeah now. Yeah, oxygen, exoxy, yes. Can't see oxygen, but I believe. Yeah. We can't see or feel or smell oxygen except when the wind is blowing, right? But you breathe and you need oxygen to breathe. So, yeah, that we can't observe as human beings. But of course, you can absolutely observe oxygen in a lab, of course. Okay. Um, Now the birds are singing outside, so it's time for me to go. And hope you enjoyed this little chat. 2 hours, not bad. We didn't get too many trolls either. So, yeah, the comment section will be entertaining, I believe. Yeah. Okay. Have a wonderful day or evening, and we will talk soon.